We've been saying, we will be collecting data this term. We realise it is very late, and you will be doing two data collections in quite close proximity. But we did want to collect data for this term because obviously we've paid you on the basis of autumn term 19 figures, and we do want to have a look at the variances. And also, we didn't want you in January to be working with very old data. And it also gives you an opportunity to sort of get used to the system before we go into the major January census, which is obviously the key one for funding for the following year. I hope you'll find it, a sort of a useful system. I mean, I think we've sort of got generally very positive feedback from previous sessions. So without further ado, Hester, if you want to launch in and show people, and as I say, afterwards we'll have the opportunity for questions through the protocol for that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Claudia. So what my part is, I'm going to show you the session a bit about the interface. And before I do that, I'll take you through some protocols that we would like you to follow. And as Leslie said, any queries we're going to put into that chat. But let me just take you through a document. It won't take long. I'm going to share my screen. Now, we are working with a sort of test environment, and things do go wrong. So, just bear with us if they do. And again, I'm going to thank you for your patience at this present time. So just bear with me. I'm just about to present my screen. Let's go for my entire screen. All right, so bear with me. Now, I'm hoping that you can see my screen in a second. Should be able to see my screen. It's the welcome screen. And yeah, welcome to the Synergy free entitlement data collection training session. Just so you know, this session will be recorded. It's been recorded as I speak. I want you to feel free to ask any questions using that chat facility. So try and sort of look at your screens now and locate it if you can, and even use it just to introduce yourself. We don't need your camera at this stage, and it's probably a bit better because it makes things a little bit faster. So it'd be great if you could just switch your cameras off, and once I've done my part, feel free to switch them back on. So it's nice seeing your faces, etc. Also, your audio, just make sure you just mute that for me so we don't get any background interference during the session. And again, we'll tell you when it's okay to sort of undo all of those. So this session is kicking off at 10:30. We should definitely finish within time. We've got quite a few people online for this session. So some of you may have quite a few queries and questions, which we'll deal with towards the end. So I'm going to run my bit through, then we're going to take questions after. So it's going to be Claudia and Leslie managing all those questions. As I said, my name's Hester Elaine. I'm going to be assisted today by Chris Marriott, who's doing some great background work for us because it's a two-way process. He's going to be acting as the LA when I start inputting some data. Right, so let me just show you the next page, which is topics to overview. Not going to read this out word for word, but certainly about signing in. We're going to look at your summary screens, your estimates and actuals. We're going to look at how you're going to be posting information, working with the EY voucher. We're going to look at the headcount submissions. I said as a talk through, but I probably will be demonstrating all of this. And we're going to then drop straight into the 3- and 4-year-old funding, which is very, very similar process, but it's probably good for you to see it anyway. And we'll end my session with an ad hoc 30-hour eligibility code check. So I'll just show you how to use that. And that really doesn't take a long time to do at all. Just a couple of things I want you to be aware of. If you're using or joining us with Google Hangouts, some of you may be using Zoom or Microsoft Teams, but certainly get familiar with what interface you're working with Google Hangouts. And that's what we're working with at the moment. That's myself and the team. If you need to mute your sound, please mute sound because it does come through and can cause some interference. So it can sort of impact what we're doing. You've got the hang up button, so please avoid clicking on this button just here. Do that at the end once we've finished. Switch off your camera. We don't need to see you at this stage, and we will remind you when you can switch those on. If you've got any queries for some of you, you may see this raise hand button. So towards the end, when we're taking the Q&As, you can work with your raise hand button. We've also got the very top right-hand corner. If you're using Google Hangouts, you've got a chat. Make use of chat. Even whilst I'm talking and doing the demo, just put all your questions in there because what we're going to do once I finish the demonstration part, we are going to take all your questions, which I'm sure some of you may have. So without any further ado, it's a ready, set, go. I'm going to dive straight in. So I'm going to be working with a browser, and the browser I'm working with is Firefox, but you should be able to work with any browser that you deem fit. Now, I'm hoping, and just tell me if you cannot see my screen, because I'm looking now and I actually can't see my screen. So I'm just going to quickly stop sharing and go back in. Leslie, Claudia, you can't see my screen, can you? Am I right in saying that?
No, we
Yeah,
can't.
I thought, yeah,
It's
okay,
in a
thank
black.
you. Yeah, this is when Google can be a bit naughty. So I'm going to stop sharing and then I have to dive back in again. Okay, so technology has its way. So just see what happens here. Okay, I can actually see. Right, so bear with me, team. I'm just looking at it from my screen. Should be able to see my screen now. From what I can see, well, I can see me and I can see my screen. So what we've got now, I've gone into what's called my browser, and you should be getting your links, and we'll talk about those a bit later on when we take the Q&A. So you'll be filled in about when you're getting your sign-ons, your links, etc., etc. I'm going to sign back in from the link, and I'm working with a test portal system. So I'm just going to sign back in. All you need to do is enter your username, and my name's Hester, so I just type my first name, click onto this next button, takes me into my sign in screen. And from that sign in screen, I can see that this is where you enter your password, which is disguised. You've got a few other buttons to sort of look at. You can change user. You can also click on forgot passwords. If you've forgotten your password, we would be tapping onto this button. And you've also got a sign in. So once I've successfully entered my password, click on to sign in, it does remember it. So you don't have to keep typing it in all the time. It also just actually does remember your password from your last session. Takes me straight into the home screen. And from that home screen, I just want to sort of dive in a bit about this interface that you see. And it's very simple. Very top left-hand corner, I've got like a house. So that literally just takes me back to this home screen that you're seeing. You've got the modules, and with the modules, you've got your Synergy home screen, which looks a bit like this. But the one that we want to see from the modules is we want to actually be looking at the childcare service provider. And that's the screen that I'm on now. We're working with a fictitious organisation, and that's myself, Hester's Kiddie Care, just for the training purposes today. Top right-hand corner, just shaking my mouse over this, just my account management information, and just venture to this area if I need to, for example, change my password, or I'll just click on this so you can see. So it just tells me my password. So this is where you'd go to change it. And also if I want to sign out at the end of my session. So I'm going to just go back to the left, and I'm going to go into this childcare service provider, and it takes you straight back to my splash screen where you'll see 3 main tabs. And those 3 main tabs takes me to my home, forms, which we're not going to be covering today, and funding. So we'll be switching between home and the funding tab. Just to deep dive a bit more on that home tab, what you'll see is the Welcome to Hackney Provider portal screen. And here you will see you've got your different terms, the estimates and actuals. So we'll certainly be looking at today, working with the autumn term, working with estimates, actuals and adjustments. If I click onto the funding tab, from the funding tab, what you will see again now, you have some sub menus, and the sub menus here, you've got your summaries, estimates, actuals, and notice as I hover over each of these, they kind of show up in a red color, so you know that that's been activated. They're the ones that we're going to be clicking onto. So we're going to be looking at the summary, estimates, actuals, adjustments, and the eligibility checker for today. You can see you've got your select year and term, you've got the spring term and autumn term, and for today's session, we're going to be working with the autumn term. All right, so let's just click onto the summary tab, which just gives you an idea of what that's looking like. From the summary, it's in bold now. I select autumn term. And from the autumn term, you can see just right in the middle of this screen, you've got the different funding types. So I've got the 2-year-old funding. As I said to you a bit later on, I will be going through the 3- and 4-year-old funding. And let's click onto the 2-year-old funding. When I click onto the 2-year-old funding, what you'll see is your summary. You can see you've got your titles at the very top. On the left-hand side, you will see estimates. And if I venture to the right, you'll see the actuals. At the moment, these are all down to a 0. And that's what one would expect because we haven't put any information in as yet. So this is kind of giving you a view of what these summary screens are looking like. So you can see the estimate information that I've got it's really drilled down to a 0. You may see little drop down arrows or flight buttons, which just gives you a bit more information. You can just tap these just to open up to see further fields. Right, so we've just touched base on how you can sign in, how you can work with your passwords, which I'm happy with. I've just gone through with you a bit about the home screen, where you can see your estimates, actuals and adjustments. And I should say, actually, from this home tab team, you'll normally see any notifications at the bottom, but I've got nothing in here at the moment, but you will sometimes see notifications appear just right at the very bottom of that screen, just to let you know. So if you see anything there, as we work through, I will point it out to you. Going back into funding now. For funding, I've selected the autumn term. I've selected 2-year-old, and I'm now on the summary tab. I'm going to go in and start talking about the funding estimates. So we're now working with this option. If I click on to funding estimates, it now shows me the screen which tells me the number of weeks for this term and estimates for the number of funded hours, which I need to input. So, for example, if I want to enter the number of weeks for this term, and we could, for example, hypothetically put something like 13, and then in this area for the number of hours, let's say I'm going to enter 180. If you notice on the left-hand side, I've got a calculate button. And when I click on the calculate button, it actually updates just across this to the right of the estimate number of funded hours. It's going to show me there are 2,340 hours in this term. Good opportunity at this stage if you want to change it. Let's say, for example, I'm going to just drop that down to 12 and recalculate. Again, you can see how this figure is now being updated. Once you're happy with what you've entered, you've done all your calculations, only then should you click onto this send claim button. And when I click onto the send claim button, you're going to see a panel appear at the top which reads submission successful. So that's what I'm looking for. It's got a green tick. So what that's doing now, it's winging its way to my local authority. So it's going to look at the payments and do all the updates that's necessary in the back end. So whilst we're waiting for that, I'm going to click back onto my summary tab, and straight away, bingo, I'm happy. You can see these figures have now been populated. So just on the estimate side, you can see that it's completed the relevant data for me. So you do need to sometimes be patient with that, but I think it happens fairly quickly. But again, I've got someone who's doing that back end for me, which is working really well. Okay, so once the local authority has imported your estimates and you've clicked on that send claim button, when I click back onto the estimate button, just notice this, the send claim button is now grayed out. So I can't do anything at all with this. So it's slightly, it's now been grayed out, deactivated. We've submitted, so we don't need to do anything further. Right, so it's now going to take me on to the actual 2-year-olds. We're going to look at the headcount submissions. So I'm going to move on to working with those, and I'm going to look at or demonstrate to you how we can work with what's called the actuals. So let's click onto actuals. And when I click onto actuals, it now gives me a few more options to certainly look at. I've got sort of 2 banks of buttons here. I've got add child and enter EY voucher. This is what we're going to be spotlighting at the moment. So we're going to look at the enter EY voucher information. Let's click onto the enter EY voucher information. Now it opens up a window, which is my EY claim window. And notice, I want you to sort of bear in mind the fields with a mandatory, with an asterisk you can see alongside. These are mandatory fields, so you must complete them. So I need to now just drop into a spreadsheet so I can get some of those code information. So bear with me. I'm going to just quickly go into an Excel spreadsheet and look for the voucher code, child's date of birth and child's surname. So I'm just going to just quickly go into my Excel sheet. I'm going to see, you can see voucher code, date of birth and surname. I'm just going to quickly just double click, copy this back into my document, and I'm going to paste it just to save time. Child's date of birth. I can work with this navigation field just to type it in if I need to, just to click and select it. But for ease of use, for ease of today, I'm just going to quickly just select. If this one will work, it's 2019, but we'll soon find out. Once you know the format of it, as long as it hasn't got these little forward slashes, I can actually just substitute those. I'm going to do. Just find it a little bit quicker sometimes. And now I need to get the child's surname, so I'm going to drop back into my spreadsheet. And I've got, I'm sure I've worked with this one before, but we'll soon see what happens. All right, so if this voucher doesn't prove useful, we'll just go for another one. So now I've got my code, I've got my child's date of birth, I've got the child's surname. I am going to click on submit, and it says you must enter a valid date. So I think what I'm going to do on this instance, had a feeling I think I've used this one before. I'm going to just knock down to the next one. Just want to fill that one in because I just want to use it again. So let me just quickly just drop those in. And it's Adkins, 14th of February 2018. I'll just do this 14th, show you how this works. 14th of February, you can see, and it's 2018. So I'm just backspacing that out. Right, fingers crossed, this should work. There you go. That's exactly what I need to see. So I've entered the information. Takes me straight into the fund, still on the funding actuals, obviously, but it shows me I'm working with Scott Adkins, date of birth. And what we need to view now is to look at the different tabs that you need to concentrate on. So we're really going to be looking at, this is the summary tab. You can see nothing's been updated. We haven't put anything in at the moment, but you do need to complete the child's details. And if you've used a voucher code, the EY voucher code, you can see it's already pre-populated the information for me. But for a few fields that we do need to change on this tab, most of that information has been input. Had I gone for the Add Child button, you'd have to manually type in or put in this information. Right, so make sure, again, bold fields are denoted with an asterisk. You do need to complete those, so they're mandatory fields. I need to select from this particular Child TDOS tab the proof of date of birth, genders completed, ethnicity. So this is a core field. Just going to scroll down and just go for, let's go for anything here. You must complete the send cop stage. You can see I've completed that. And all of these fields, address line 1, again, mandatory, postcode, all completed for me. I'm now going to just go take you to the next tab, which is your parent carer details. And for this one, the good news is for the 2-year-olds, you do not need to complete it. I will say for the 3-4-year-olds you do, but this particular for the 2-year-olds, it's not necessary. If you do decide to complete it, there will be certain fields that you do need to look at. For example, you may need to put in some of the information. For example, you probably need to put the date of birth, ethnicity, SENCOP as well. But from this, you really should just, you can bypass it. That's what I'm trying to say. So funding details tab, this is the one that we do need to look at. With the funding details tab, let's go through the fields that are mandatory that you do need to look at. So we need to look at the start and end date. You can see mandatory. If these are blank, you can simply click on the default term dates, and that would automatically pre-populate these two fields. Other things I'm going to look at is entering the weeks in the term. So weeks attended in term. I'm going to put a 12 in there. We're going to tick the present during census. We're going to tick attend 2 days or more. And we're going to now go down to the universal hours, and I'm going to enter 10 in there. For the attendance days, not necessary again, so I'm going to bypass this area, and I'm going to go down to the non-funded hours. And if, just say, it should pre-populate with a 0, but if it's empty, just make sure it's not left blank. Just make sure you've got a 0 in there. So that is really cool. Make sure there is information in the non-funded hours. So even if it's a 0, just input a 0 there. Just moving a bit further down. As we work through these sessions, make note of these maximum values allowed. These areas, anything with a red. So within these boxes, you can see the number of weeks, the universal weekly hours, the universal termly hours, and the universal yearly hours. So do have a look at these, and I think that's why they put them in these colours in this box on the right, so you can actually really alert you to them. So what have we done so far? We've completed the child's details. We've completed I've bypassed the parent carer details and completed the funding details. We've worked with all the mandatory fields. If you do by chance happen to not complete a field, the system is fantastic at telling you you've missed a skip, you've missed something out. Just go back to the summary tab. You can see everything's at 0 at the moment. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to deliberately make a mistake here. I'm going to leave this on as unknown so you can see what's going to happen. If I now try to save it, straight away it will say save, record failed, due to the errors listed below. So let's venture to the errors. It tells me the following errors need to be fixed before the record can be saved. And what's nice about it, it tells me I haven't completed the send cop stage field. It cannot be left as unknown. So I'm going to now go back to this field. Notice the little red asterisk alongside. So it's telling me this is the field that you need to complete. And I'm going to select Education, Health and Care Plan. Right, I'm happy with everything so far. Let's save it and let's see what happens. Brilliant, that's worked well. Straight away, you can see that the child's information has been completed. So it's now added. I can go on to add a child. Just want to show you that add child. When you click on add child, you can see what I was mentioning, that these fields you do need to complete. Whereas when I worked with the voucher, you can see that once I've added the voucher, just to show you again, that these fields automatically are pre-populated. So it was the address details and some of the areas on the right. I'm going to click on cancel. So at the moment, let's talk about what you're seeing just in this table. On the left-hand side, when you point to these little icons, it tells me it's an unsubmitted claim. So I haven't sent the claim through as yet. If you do have a change of heart and change your mind, this undo edit will allow me to go click onto it and I can actually undo any changes. So it does prompt me, are you sure this is what you want to do? So you can either just select yes if that's what you want to do, but at this stage, I'm going to say no. When I point to Scott Adkins' name, you can see it hyperlinks. It gives me a hand. So that allows me to go back into it if for any reason I need to do any sort of changes. You can see it takes me straight back in. So that will allow me to go in and just add more information if I need to, or for something I've missed. Right, so now that takes me to this send claim button. Once I'm happy with it, I can just click onto the send claim, but only click onto send claim when you're really satisfied with the information that you've put through. So I'm now going to click onto send claim. The submission now has been winging its way through to get this all set up and approved in the back end. So you can still see that it's still listed. Let's go back to that summary tab. And here you go. You can see straight away in my summary tab, everything's been completed. You can see this side is now populated. And if you go to our actuals again, you can see that the values, the amount balances have now been put through. All right. Okay, so just to summarize, we've looked at the funding, we've looked at the summary tab, we've looked at the estimate tab. We've spoken about some of the features in there. I mentioned to you when you go into the estimate tab, this becomes grayed out the send claim button once you've posted the information. We're going to, when we looked at the actuals information, you can see that, well, this is what we're going to go to now. We're going to certainly look at working with submitting. We've done that part just to make sure. We're going to then jump through. Once you've done your actuals, you can see that this has all been updated. So we're just waiting. But again, look, notice send claim, you can't submit it again once you send all the information, your records through. So it's probably a good idea to do them all in one go. Right, that's now going to take me through to working with the funding and adjustments area. The adjustment area, it's something that you don't need to do as yet. So I know that, but I think it's worth us going through that process so you can see how easy it is. Now, at the moment, my screen's showing screen that's just saying, not paid, etc. So it's not showing what I quite need to see as yet. So I'm going to log out, which I'm doing now, just venture into the top right. I'm going to sign out of my system and sign back in. And you'll see how this screen will update in a moment. So now I go back into funding, into adjustments, straight away. You can see it's now updated. I can see my term information. And as I said, I'm working with the term, autumn term. Information's all hunky-dory so far. So you can see your funding type in the middle just here. I'm going to click on the 2-year-old funding because that's what we're working with. And you can see straight away, you can still see I've got Scott's information, but we're going to be working with entering an EY voucher. So there's only like one difference on this screen, so we won't go into too much details. If I click on to enter EY voucher, in fact, just want to show you what the difference is with the adjustments, just to save a bit of time. I'm conscious we've got quite a few people on. I know you're going to have quite a few questions for some of you, but I'll show you what the difference is when you work with the adjustments. I'm going to revisit Scott Adkins, and this is the difference. Every single tab is the same, but it's now thrown in a pending adjustment tab. That's the difference. And with the pending adjustments, you'll see it's got the number of hours, which we're going to need to add. And it's also has a reason 500 character box that we're going to work with. All right. So for example, when I click on the number of hours, you've got two options. You've got more hours or less hours. So if I select more hours in this example, I enter a value in here. So let's go for 5, for example. You put a reason for that in here. So I'm going to enter the same information I've been using actually for this training. Correct hours omitted from sub. Okay, just keep it nice and simple. You can see at the bottom in the this block, it tells you about the maximum values. The universal termly hours 195 and your universal yearly hours of 570. So that's all you need to do. So from the funding adjustments, you'll just get this extra tab. It's called your pending adjustments, where you'll need to populate the number of hours, enter an amount, and put a reason for that. And you can see you've got quite a few characters there, 500. Once I've done that, I just click on to save. Now it's just telling me there's a information record failed and the error below. So let's see what's happened. Don't know if anyone could have a gold star and spot it, but straight away, you see this bit. So it tells you just completed all of that. Now I'm going to click on save and this will work. So there you go. Add child, enter EY voucher, and now if I click on send claim, again, submission successful. Right, so it's now winging its way for the submission of my estimates and actuals. And we can do, as I said, you can view the summaries at any time, so you can see what's happening. Right, so just in overall, that's everything that I'm going to show you when it comes to working with the 2-year-old funding before I sort of jump straight into the 3- and 4-year-old process. So let me just summarize all this for you. We looked at the home screen, and from the home screen is where you can see your sort of notifications and your estimates, actuals, and adjustment information. And you will see notifications at the bottom if there's anything listed just here. We're not looking at forms, but we looked at the funding. And from the funding, you get these sub tabs. And we looked at the summary tab, which we're on now. It posts to 0 until you enter your submissions. We looked at creating estimates. Notice how this estimates tab has now changed because I've already done my posting for this. So it now just says estimated hours. We've looked at actuals. And we entered information for the actuals. And we worked with Scott Adkins. And we completed relevant fields just here. And then for the summary tab, you can see now this has actually been updated accordingly, my funding amount, etc. We looked at the child's details tab. I said to you for 2-year-olds, you do not need to complete the parent details. And we looked at the funding details information. Just going to close the screen. We looked at adjustments. I said to you, the only difference you've got in the adjustments is this. It's simply that when you go into your claim, you'll see that you get a pending adjustment tabs, which you do not see only when you select adjustments. But we don't need to talk about adjustments at this stage. I just want to demonstrate how easy it is to work with the adjustments. I also told you to make use of looking at your maximum values allowed, these boxes, because they're really useful. And that's why they've kind of put them in a different color so they're drawn to our attention. I'm just going to click on cancel from there. Before I talk about the 2-year-old, sorry, the 3-4-year-old funding, I just quickly overview that for some of you who may have joined late. So that was just a very quick overview. You will be getting training material. You will be getting all the support you need when you're working with the system. But I'm sure you can join with me and seeing how easy it is. Now let's touch base on working with the 3- and 4-year-old funding. At the moment, I'm still on the submit adjustments for the 2-year-old funding, and to change into this, if I'm on this funding adjustment screen, I can simply just click onto the change button. You'll normally see these banners at the top, so I can just flip through from change, autumn term, notice 3- and 4-year-old. The 3- and 4-year-old is a little bit more, just a little bit more that we've got to do when we work with it. So I'm going to now go through the 3- and 4-year-old process. Summary tab. All right, so you can see again, you've got these little arrows that you can look at, but the summary tab, everything's down to a 0, understandably. We now look at the estimates. So let's put the estimates in, and I'm going to enter, let's put 12 in there. Hours of, I'm going to put 200. Remember, you calculate, information has come through, updates on the right-hand side, so 2,400 hours in this term. Remember, you can actually change it if you want to. So if I say I'm going to take that down to 10, so 195, recalculate, only then will I click onto the send claim, which I'm going to do now. Okay, submission successful. I go to my summary tab. Okay, so we need to do a bit of a waiting game here for it to be processed. If I go back to estimates, the send claim button is now grayed out. All right, so let's look at working with the actuals here. So if I click onto actuals, for this example, I'm going to work with the add child. We'll work with the 3- and 4-year-olds. It tells me in the banner. I click onto the add child button, and it gives me the very similar tabs that you saw earlier. So for this one, now I do need to do a bit more typing, so be patient with me as I flick back and forth. All right, good idea to have a sip of tea now, I think, whilst I do all of this. So let's just see what I've got for my 3- and 4-year-olds, and you can see the mandatory fields that are denoted in the bold and with an asterisk to the right. So I'm going to the 3- and 4-year-olds. Just make that bit larger on my screen. And let's just, right, so this is my 3- and 4-year-old data. I've got Etta. Let's go for an easier one. Kiki, I like that name. So I'm going to go for Kiki here. Kiki West. I may have used this before, so do bear with me. So I'll just quickly cut and paste all this information in as we, Kiki West. So I could type that in because I remember that. Kiki's Dob. So Kiki's date of birth is 3rd of April. Notice the dashes in there, so this will be easy for me to put it in. 3rd of April 2017. I can use the navigation, but I know that will work. Remember, it's got the dashes, so that will work fine. Proof of date of birth, we need to select. Gender. Okay, ethnicity. Remember, these are really important fields that you need to work with. Send cop. Selected. Do need to put the address in, so let's just see what address we've got for Kiki. Let's make it a bit different colour so I can see. So I just want to drop a colour on so I know that that's the one I'm working with. So it's number 4, and there's the postal code. So I'll just quickly grab that postal code. It's number 4. Okay, and we'll just drop that in there and the postal code. So Hester's happy with all of that. That's all completed. Remember, if you do miss a skip and miss a field, it will tell us. Now, with the 3- and 4-year-olds, you do need to complete this parent carer details. So I'm going to just flick back again, go back in and just look for the parent carer details. And I've got Iris for this one. So it's Iris West. Iris West, and her date of birth is the 23rd of August 1989. So let me just grab that. Iris West. Now, make sure you put it on the right side, because earlier, once I was training, And honestly, it's just due that not having any breakfast. I've completed it in this area, and I can see people typing saying, Hester, you put it in the wrong bit. But it's always good for things to go wrong. I mean, look, we are human, aren't we? So, okay, we need to complete the NI number. So let's go back into the NI number. So I'm going to just skip across to this one and grab that NI number. Just copy and paste that in as well. So my NI number is on this side. See, I nearly went across there again. I'm waiting for a message to come up from Chris. Hester, you're doing it wrong. Hester, even after breakfast, I still make mistakes. Thank you, Chris. Sorry, I'm reading little chats here. Right, tick to give consent. So we've got 30H. Yeah, so make sure this is selected. I'm happy with everything so far. So what have we done so far? We've put the child details in. Remember, these are the ones you really need to look for, the ethnicity and the SENCOP. We've got the parents' carer details. That's the difference between the 2-year-olds and the 3 and 4-year-olds. That's the skip there. We need to complete this information. And then we've got the funding details now. So this is the last tab really that I'm going to go through with you, and you can see how easy this is. So let me get that for you at the same time. So what information have I got? Right, fields that are important. Notice these are blank, just default terms. That will populate it for me. Brilliant, nice and easy. Weeks attended in terms. So what have we got here? So I'm going to put a 10 in there, and I'm going to enter, right, tick boxes. Simple, tick, tick. Nominated for DAF, it's a no. Universal hours, I'm just going to quickly go through these, but as I'm doing it, do take note of these fields. And remember, use your chat, team, use your chat, put any questions in there, because once I finish this, it's over to Claudia and over to Leslie, who are going to help you out. All right, we need to select the 30H eligibility code. I need to go and grab that for my spreadsheet, so I'm going to go back and let's look for that. So much easier when I just threw it into Excel, because I can just literally copy and paste it. I've saved about 10 minutes of time doing this. There you go. And I've got this 30-hour free childcare option. I'm going to click onto that option. It does come up with this. It's been found. Yeah. So you can see what's happened. Again, on the attendance area, you can see that it's not mandatory. So we don't need to complete all of this. Non-funded hours, I would recommend you put information in there. If it's a 0, put a 0 in there. But again, just let's scoot down to this area. Notice number of weeks. You can see all your universal hours. So just spend a few minutes just looking at that, a few seconds, I should say. Yeah. So because you may have questions around that. So far, yeah, I am happy with all of this. I don't think I've missed a skip, and I'm sure if I have, obviously someone will put it into the chat. What I'm going to do at this stage is click onto my save button. So when I click on save, something's failed, and it is, let's have a look. My saved record failed due to the errors listed below. Let's go down and see what that is. The following errors need to be fixed before the record can be saved. It's my nominated for DAF must be entered. Did I not do that? Maybe not. Let me go back and see where that is. It's on the funding details tab. Yep. So where is it? Nominated 0. Nominated for DAF. I said no. It's this one. It's this. Let's see why. The following errors need to be fixed before the record can be saved. Nominated for DAF must be entered. Funded details tab. Have I missed a scoot there?
You haven't ticked it.
Do you know, I did tick it. I just need to point out to everyone, this is really important. I'm sure I completed it, but sometimes it can happen. It drops off. It drops off. But again, it's told me. Thank you, though. Thank you, team. Right, save now. Yay! Great. I'm going to have my cup of tea in a moment. Right, so what have we got? We added the child. Remember, I told you you've got these little drop downs, these little sort of tooltips that tells you undo if you need to undo it. There's Kiki. Yeah, happy with everything just here. All right. So once you're happy, we can then click onto the send claim. And that's now been submitted. Submission successful. Send claim button, grayed out, nothing further to do. How easy was that? It's actually quite fun at the same time. Once you're familiar with it all, it's really doing it with your eyes closed. It's simple. You kind of know where you're clicking. You get familiar with the whole thing. Right. So we've just covered the 3 and 4-year-old process, all been recorded. So if you do need a reminder, you will get information, the recordings for these sessions. I'm now going to end my area of this part on looking at the ad hoc 30-hour eligibility code check. And that's really very, very simple to do. And it's just up here. When I click onto the eligibility, I can't say that, checker, you click onto the 30-hour free childcare. Opens up a window. You need to put in, I'm not saying that word, code. You need to put in the child's date of birth, and we need to put in the parent care NI number. So we do need to complete these fields, and you can see they're denoted by the asterisk. So let me just go and grab some of that information. So I've just clicked off a screen that I wasn't supposed to. Just bear with me. Okay, I'll go back to that. So let me get the code for this one. So let's just use this one. Just going to click onto this one just here. Right, so I'm working on this code. Control C that. So that is going to drop straight into there. Child's date of birth. Let me just go look for the child's date of birth, not the parents. I'm going to scoot back across to my spreadsheet. Here. Okay, there's a child's date of birth in here. And then I need to put in the parent care NI number. Let's just grab that, which is all the way across on my spreadsheet. Parent care NI number, which is this one. Okay, let's just drop that in. Looking good. You need to select consent must be given for this. So I've just ticked that box. Submit. Yay. Let's just zoom in a bit more so you can see. So the details you provided have been found, and you can see the relevant information, code start date, end date, and the grace period. So you can see this has all been set up. And if I do need to do this again, just click back onto that button, and that will actually tell us, you just go through the whole process again. So as long as you complete or find that, you find the relevant details just here, you can see that this will work really well. So we supplied the code, we supplied the child's date of birth, and we just had to tick the parent NI number, and we had to tick the eligibility check for this to work. Right, so I'm just going to go back now, just zoom a bit out, back into my home screen. I would say we've covered everything, and as I said, it worked really quite straightforward. That's my part for what I need to deliver to you. I hope you found it really useful. Again, work with the chat if you're not sure. I'm now going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand over to the super duper team that is going to be Leslie and Claudia. If you've got any questions, feel free to put them into the chat, raise your hand, and we'll be dealing with them now. So thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Hester. Claudia, shall I just start and then the sort of two side to you? Okay. Thank you for sort of being with us for the presentation. I hope you did find it useful. And as Hester has said, there will be, once we're intending to open up your accounts tomorrow or Monday at the latest, and you will have a training manual, plus you'll have access to recordings of these sessions. And we are going to compile a sort of Q&A list from these sessions as well, which I mentioned earlier, okay, which we'll get out to you as soon as possible. And just to say that Hester's shown you the system as it works from beginning to end, as if we were the starting point was that we were using this with the Synergy parent portal in operation, and all your 2-year-olds had come through the Synergy parent portal. We're obviously not in that position, and obviously this term, nor are we in the position for you to be doing the estimates. We've already done those because we're starting sort of later through the term. So just to summarise and sort of compare to the old system. So from next term, or definitely from the summer term, we will not be doing the estimates as we normally do them, in the sense that we look at previous comparable term, make an assessment of your numbers and pay you 50% of that. What you will be doing on that estimates tab is letting us know how many hours you think you're going to need to be paid for the term, which is based upon, as you saw that calculation, number of weeks times the number of hours, which would be your number of children times 15 or 30, so per week. And then obviously the calculation is done multiplying the number of hours per week times the number of weeks, and then we would pay you 50% of that total number. Obviously, when it comes to us, we'll have a look at it, and if we have any queries, we will get back to you. And then what we're going to be doing this term is obviously the actuals, which is the head count. And I think I did see a question about submitting individually or in total. What you would do is you would submit in total. So Hester's just done the examples based on single children. Obviously, what you would do would then just keep on adding children until you've got your whole claim of children there, and then you would submit. The adjustments, obviously, the adjustments, and I think this answers one of the questions that was raised as well. The adjustments takes the place of what we do at the moment. You would not be needing to submit any headcounts for late starters. You would not need to be sending us any emails for early leavers. And obviously, if you have any children that you have missed off your headcount, which we sometimes get, the children have been there, but obviously for, administrative reasons or just an error, you've missed them off the headcount. They can be included in that. And so that's where you have that, when you see that drop-down box, you have less hours and you have more hours. So you would be claiming more hours if it was a late starter or a missed child, and you would be claiming less hours if it was an early leaver. So what you're doing by that is you're letting us know that you've overclaimed for a child, and we would make the necessary adjustments. And I think sort of in terms of the 2-year-olds, Claudia will go on to talk about it in more detail, but obviously for this particular headcount, you are going to need to use the enter a child tab, because the vouchers you have at the moment are the capita vouchers, not the Synergy ones. As I say, Claudia will talk in more detail about that. In terms, I'm just going to quickly talk about DAF and EYPP, because this system also collects that information. As you'll have seen from it, and I think we've talked about this at the PDNs and previously, this is a funding module only. So the only children that you're submitting to us will be the children for whom you're claiming free entitlement funding. So in answer to those questions, if you don't do 2-year-olds and you don't do 30 hours, then you don't complete those sections. You'll just be putting in your universal 3- and 4-year-old children. So you wouldn't complete the 2-year-old element, and you wouldn't complete the additional 15 hours. Okay, and it's also the module is also going to be used for collecting information on the early years pupil premium. So if you want us to check for EYPP, then you will need to make sure that you've ticked that particular option and that we've got the relevant information to be able to do it. And for the Disability Access Fund, previously we've paid that on, these are children who are eligible for 3- and 4-year-old funding, and also have they're eligible for the DLA. This we've collected previously on an ad hoc basis and paid on an ad hoc basis. We will be aiming, from next term to start collecting that information through the census and making the payment through the census as well. So again, if you have a child, they're eligible for the disability access, for the DLA, and you want to claim the Disability Access Fund, you will need to make sure you tick that. What we'll be doing outside of the system is then asking you for the backup information. Okay, so previously where you've had to submit the application form, you would just tick on the Synergy system, and then we'll ask you for the copy of the DLA letter to confirm the eligibility. I think that's it at the moment. I'm sure there'll be lots of other things that will come up when we look at the questions that you've put in the chat. But if I just hand over to Claudia to give some more details on how we're going to handle the 2-year-olds this term. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. So as you've seen, the Synergy system uses a different number to our current TYF number. So what we're going to do for this autumn term census is we're going to allow you to add all the eligible children that are currently attending with their TYF numbers. You won't have to add their TYF numbers to the systems, you just add the children's details, and we'll accept them into your claim, and we will do the work in the back office to verify that those children are all eligible as you have provided them. Going forward, when there are new children, all of those applications will have to be done by parents. Unfortunately, Synergy doesn't provide a parent portal, sorry, a provider portal which allows you to do assisted applications for the parent. So that's one of the drawbacks, but we're hoping to do a workaround where you will be able to collect all of the information from the parent, which is their national insurance number, their date of birth, their full name, the child's details, and an email address of the parent, and then you would register on the system for a parent who is not able to do it themselves, because we're very well aware that there are some parents who can self-access, they can do it themselves, and that's fine. You can just suggest to them, this is where you go in, log in and do an application and bring back your code, subject to you being eligible. But there are a number of parents who don't have access to the relevant, whether it's computer or internet, they're not IT literate, and they will need your support. So the only way that you can do it is by gathering their information, and you present yourself on the system as the parent with the parent's email address, subject to them having one, and then you will be able to go in, log in as them, do an application, and then they will get the email outcome which they can present to you for a place. We do recognise that that's going to be probably in the summer term when more and more applications will come through from parents. So we're going to continue to accept the TYF number, but that will mean that as a local authority we'll have to do a little bit more work in the background to confirm those are eligible children. One of the good things with Synergy is it only accepts eligible codes. It only gives a parent a code when they are eligible, so that will make it a lot easier. And Hester has shown you how to add children to the system that are presenting themselves to you with an eligible code. We will be turning on the parent portal for Synergy so that parents can begin to make applications sometime this week, possibly on Friday or Monday. So going forward, you'd advise your parents as much as possible to go on to our website, find the link and make an application there themselves. And obviously you will be aware of it so that you can best signpost and support those parents as appropriate. So the workaround will be is that you collect that information, and we're hoping that the local authority will be of assistance to you to help. But we're asking you, because 2-year-olds is a priority for the authority, we do want to increase the take-up of 2-year-old places, that you continue to support parents, especially where you know that they're not able to self-serve themselves. They're not able to go away and do it themselves. So that's really important. There have been a number of questions in the chat about 2-year-olds. So as I've explained, I hope that's clear. The EY voucher is going to replace our TYF voucher or our TYF code, and that's going forward. Although, as I've already said, we will accept those codes going forward right up until the summer term, possibly. If you're not offering 2-year-old places, Leslie's explained that one. You don't have to provide any information on eligible 2-year-olds. That's fine. You would just skip that section and go to your funded children. I think those were all the questions that I saw in there regarding 2-year-olds.
I just come in, Claudia. It's not about 2-year-olds, but there was just going through the questions. There was multiple sign-ins. I think we had that question.
Yes, so
into that.
Yeah. So for settings that may be supported, every setting will get a login. So if, for example, there's a key individual that might support a number of settings, they will just share their login details with you. So for example, if you're a play group and you've got one finance manager who is looking after 3 or 4 play groups, those play groups will provide you with the login details, which will be issued on Friday or Monday, and you will be able to log in to do those data uploads and to also review summary pages, etc., etc. Yeah.
Difference between the estimates and the actuals, I think we addressed that. Yeah, the actuals obviously being what was the old head count.
Yeah, we've addressed that.
Yeah, I think we just 2-year-olds. The The estimated number of funded hours per week based on one child. No, it would be based on the number of children that you're anticipating having, the total number in the setting.
There was a question that I realised that I've missed, didn't respond to, which was regarding 2-year-old children from out of borough. So if I can recall correctly, it will allow you to do, the parent portal will allow you to do applications from out of borough. And as we've already said, if a parent comes from another local authority confirming that they've confirmed their local their eligibility in another borough, Islington, Tower Hamlets, or wherever, and they're bringing a code from Islington or Tower Hamlets, we're still requiring you to do the application on our portal, and I think that will remain. So we'll still encourage you to support the parent from out of borough to do it on our Synergy parent portal so that we have a record of that child attending. There was also a question regarding, will data submitted previously be seen? So when you go in to do your upload for the autumn term, you will see that it has captured some of the children that were in your data return from what term was that? Was that spring term? Sorry, from summer term. So there is some information there for you. Obviously, you would need to add new children or take off children who have left.
Okay.
And that includes 2- and 3-year-olds.
Yeah. There are some other questions in here about parents refusing to give DOB and NI numbers.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's 2 elements to that. I mean, obviously, if you are asking parents, to give you that information for the purposes of claiming checking eligibility for the funding, you obviously need to make sure you have got parental consent. And I think there is a little tick box within the system where you have to tick to say that you've done that, and obviously that needs to be part of your arrangement with the parent. If they don't give information and it's needed for the funding stream, EYPP 30 hours, can't claim the funding because we have to be able to check eligibility, verify eligibility. That's my understanding. I don't know if Claudia has any other.
No, that's correct. Yeah, so you'd have to encourage your parent and explain that it's for funding purposes for EYPP or for 30 hours and or for 2-year-olds. And obviously consent would need to be received.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question about pre-population. Yes, the data that you'll be getting access to this term will be pre-populated with summer term data. And obviously going forward, it will be the same situation as normal, that will pre-populate with the previous term. So again, when you get your data for the autumn term, you will need to obviously remove those children who are no longer there and claiming, and you will just need to add any new children who are claiming this term. Obviously, the advantage being it's just funded children that we want to know about.
There's a question regarding TYF number and 30 hours and placements. So unfortunately, again, there is a module in Synergy that will allow 4 placements, but we are discussing that with Synergy to support settings to place eligible children. So there will be no placement function. So what that will mean is that you would just do your data return and we will then link them to your particular setting. And obviously, if you get children later on in the term, new starters, then again, you would submit them as an adjustment, and then we would again link them to your setting. But there is no placement function on Synergy. That's purely a capita system, which we are going to be moving away from. The mention of enhanced 30-hour placements, I'm assuming that's regarding 30 hours checks. Kathy, I'm not sure what the element of your question relates to, but in terms of 30-hour checks and 30-hour verification, you would use the ad hoc 30-hour section, which is the last part of Hester's presentation, showing you how to confirm before you offer a place for 30 hours that parent is indeed eligible and that code is indeed within the appropriate time frame for eligibility.
Can we just to confirm that when you do the ad hoc eligibility checker, it doesn't save that information. So it's literally just a check for you to be able to, so when a parent comes to you with a 30 hours eligibility number, it's for you to be able to confirm at that point in time that that child is eligible for that term. Okay, and obviously you'll need to make a note of that, because I say it doesn't save it on the system. Okay.
Right,
Obviously, once you enter the child into your data for the claim, then you will get that information, sort of retained. Okay. There's another question about NI numbers, and we just sort of mentioned that if we don't get that information, then we can't verify eligibility. Yes, we will be, in terms of the number of weeks, we will be telling you the maximum number of weeks per term you can claim.
And I think that's also in that red box that Hester highlighted. It shows you there the maximum numbers of weeks for the term.
Hester is obviously for testing, training purposes, able to change that, but obviously we would let you know what the number of weeks. Okay, so as I say, the Capita portal will not be available. I think got one about 48 weeks of the year.
I suppose that's a stretched offer query, isn't it? Somebody who's stretching the entitlement.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, obviously, the free entitlement is over 38 weeks. Yes, a lot of settings do stretch it. What you will just need to make sure is that you are claiming for the full entitlement. So effectively, obviously in our previous system, we asked for a lot more information than we will be asking for in this system, because this actually is a funding module. Hester showed you the section where you can fill out the days of the week attended, and we're saying that is optional. It's optional within the system, in the sense that if you don't complete it, it's not going to affect your funding claim. But obviously what we're looking into is whether we will ask you to submit that information. And you will probably, obviously in January, you will have to sort of give us information in more detail because of the January census. But at the moment, what I would just say, that if you're stretching the offer, just make sure that you're claiming for the full hours when you submit your claim. Okay. So new children that start in January, do we use this or still continue how we're doing it currently? That's from Charlene. You will be using the new system. Obviously, so effectively, we're going to be sending you the information to do the autumn term late census return. And obviously in January, we'll be sending you the autumn term data back for you to update for January purposes. So that's when you would add the new children. If Kathy, about the DAF, if you are claiming DAF for children this term, you can indicate on the autumn term census that they're eligible, and I can just check to see if we've already paid for them or not. Okay, but if you're wanting to claim for this term, then please put them in. I think there was a question about the TUIF system stopping. I think you addressed that, Claudia, didn't you?
Yeah. So in terms of the provider portal, I think that's going to continue just for a little while, because obviously it holds all the information. But I think we need to think about moving away from doing applications via the provider portal, and use the Synergy parent portal. So as soon as that goes live on either Friday or Monday, we will, in our information to you, just advise you. So although you'll be able to look back and see which children you may want to query, which children may have not come through as eligible, which children you've already checked and are eligible and want to offer a place for January, I think we need to start moving away from using it to do assisted applications, because that will be helpful in that all of our eligible families will now begin to be recorded and retained in our Synergy system. So whilst we haven't got a date to say this is when we're going to stop the provider portal, we want you to start thinking about moving away from that. And I'm happy to talk to settings outside of this meeting further about that if they've got any concerns, because I can imagine there will be concerns for different elements of the community. So that's what I would suggest we do. We start to move away from that. But as I said, wait till you're advised when the Synergy parent portal is up and running. We'll give you a little bit of guidance about what information you need to collect from parents so that you can then go on, if they're not able to self-serve, to do an application on a parent's behalf. Use, presenting yourself to the system as the parent. And it may mean for parents who don't have email address that you'll have to set up some dummy Hotmail or Google email addresses that you can access just for the purpose of doing an application. But that's for further discussion. We'll advise you and let you know how that will work in the future. And we will let you know when the provider portal, the Capita provider portal, we will definitely stop using it in its entirety. But we'll also advise you if records can still be seen and whether there's viewing opportunities for you. That's something to be discussed and to be finalised. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, there was a question from Leanne about the rate changes. 4 points for sneaking that one in.
We're not talking about rates.
Well, the answer to that is possibly, but we don't know yet. Okay, we haven't been given that information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In terms of the pre-populated information from last term, will include children who are not eligible this last term but are this term. What it will include will be all the children that were on your submission last term, but obviously we will have moved them up into the relevant. So we will have removed from the 2-year-old eligibility those who are now 3 and 4-year-olds. So it'd just be the normal. That's my understanding anyway, just the sort of normal process. Okay. If a child leaves midterm, how do we let you know? I hope that was addressed, Leslie, when we talked about the adjustments. So that's how you would let us know. You would actually submit that child, and you would submit them. You would give us the indication of how many hours less you were claiming. Again, if anybody has any issues when they're doing this, just to let us know.
Yeah, we'll be there to help. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for Mark, yes, you're just submitting the universal hours children. So you'd be adding the children, and you'd be confirming how many hours that you're claiming for, but you wouldn't have to put any of the additional eligibility information in.
Luciana's asked a question regarding erased data. You'd raised that with me, and I have escalated it. I'm just waiting for a response. We've been focusing on this, but you will get a response regarding your question about children that you're now no longer able to see on the Capita system. I wouldn't say go on to use this yet. Obviously, once you get your login, we'll want you to add your 30-hour children, eligible 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. But in terms of verification, let's try and see where we are with our Capita portal so that you can see what their current situation is, and then if necessary, you can use ad hoc. But I think at the moment we're just trying to resolve that query before you use the ad hoc.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask? With the hands up, sort of.
Yeah, we've literally got 15 minutes. Sorry, headphones. Yeah, 15 minutes, literally. So if anyone, just feel free to take your microphones off and just ask a question.
Just in advance of that, just to sort of say, I hope sort of when you were looking at the system, you'd see that one of the features, which I think is going to be particularly useful for yourselves, is that summary. And basically the fact that you're getting information within the system on how much you're being paid for the children, and the sort of summary payments for the term. So instead of, as you've done previously, having to, wait for the statements, and if you don't download them within a certain period of time, that information is lost and you have to come back to us to ask for that. It's going to be within the system. So I think, purely for your own benefit and for, accounting purposes, it's going to be a very useful system. Okay,
we've got a couple of questions coming in. We've got one that's in the chat, and we've got one from Kathy Murphy. Kathy, do you want to take the one? We'll take Mark Thomas' question first, and we'll come to you in a moment, Kathy, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I can see Mark Thomas has asked one there.
Just to say on that, if very quickly, is that obviously we appreciate sort of the late request. So what we're looking to do is, the way the system works is that we open up the submission windows, and then obviously close them off when we're closing off the point at which you can submit data. So we're looking to open it up until at least the beginning of January. Some settings have asked if that can be extended to mid-January. We're looking into that because obviously we want to make sure that it's not going to interfere with our collection of the January census. But we should be able to open it up until at least the beginning of January.
Okay. I know, Kathy, you had your hand. Kathy, yeah. Kathy, do you want to take your microphone, unmute it? And...
Yeah, my question was the same. Are we going to have to do stuff before Christmas, before we close down? Because children will be leaving.
No, I appreciate that. Ideally, yes, because obviously then we can start looking at the payments if there are any additional payments required. But no, we're going to try and open it up as far into January as we can. Okay, so that you can, if you are going off and you haven't got time to do it before you do, then we can still pick up any variances that we might need to.
Thanks.
Okay. And also that will, be the data that we then use to sort of send back to you in January. There's a thing on the chat about, are we going to be sent written guidance in case we forget to do something else? Yes, you will. And as I said, you've got recordings and Q&As as well.
Yeah, the documentation, hopefully, just to share with everybody, hoping to get that ready, hopefully by, I'd say Monday at the least. I'm hoping by Friday. It's been really busy, but by Monday at the very, very least. So just give us a nudge if you don't hear anything. But yeah, the recordings are going to be there with documentation.
There was another hand. Was it Denise?
Another hand? Yeah, there's a couple of hands now. I think, Kathy, you still got your hand up. I don't know if there's another question there. And then we've got Denise. Yeah. So should we, Denise, do you want to pose your question? I can see the hand still up. Oh dear.
Maybe it's a mistake.
Is that a mistake, Denise? Yeah, no, okay. Looks like a stuck hand up there. No. All right, okay. It's just gone quiet. Any other questions before we tell you to go and have your lunch or whatever you need to do? Because I'm going to officially say the words. You know what I'm going to say, Claudia and Leslie. You know how I end my sessions.
Oh,
Loads of questions. All of a sudden, we've got some come in. Mark Thomas has got a question there for you. Another question, sorry. Will we receive a link with logins?
Yes.
That's a yes to that one, Mark.
Right, Friday, Monday, latest, yeah.
And there's another question. Yeah, a couple more coming in now. Bright Buttons office, are we completing this term's data or capital or synergy?
Synergy.
synergy.
And a question from Charlene. Sorry, when will we be getting a breakdown for the autumn statement?
That will be coming when you've submitted your autumn term census data, because obviously at the moment what we've done this term is we've paid the advance and we've paid the headcount, but we've based it on autumn term 19 numbers, so it's not based on actual children. So the statements obviously relate to when you claim for specific children.
Tamsin, thank you for your comment there. Thank you, she said. Looking forward to using the new system. Oh, that's really nice to hear, isn't it? That's brilliant. Liam's got a question. Liam Eyes, do we include people who have left since September?
I mean, if they were there for, obviously the usual rules apply in the sense that if they're only there for a few days in September, or a week or so, and then gone off to school, then no, because the school will be claiming. But yes, if they've been with you for a few weeks and they've just, left midterm or you can discuss that with us. But yes, you should include them. Yeah. So
you just, where Hester uses default, you would just put an end date at the end of term for that child, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Rather than using the default dates.
Okay, a few more coming in now. I think we'll have lunch at 1 o'clock. No, I'm joking. Hannah Frankel said, thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's been very helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you. We're here to help you, here to serve. Judy, many thanks. Thank you again. These are all thank yous. Get it? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. These are all thank yous. So if there's no more questions. If you want to take your hands up, there's no more. I'm just checking again. Shall I officially say you've all been synergized? If you've got any questions, the last session's at 2:30 today. So if you want to join us again,
Or send somebody else. Yep,
Yeah, or
you can
send
do.
somebody else on someone else you want to nominate. Just please let them
Mm.
book in, and yeah, we're going to be running the final session this afternoon.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
without any
Mhm.
further ado, thank you all so much. Have a lovely lunch, and thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do Jodie.
I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay.
There you go.